Hello and welcome to TaleTalk English. Today's story is emotional, dramatic, and full of betrayal, jealousy, and painful family conflict. It will also help you improve your English listening and vocabulary through simple conversations and real-life emotions. As you listen, try to imagine every scene, every expression, and every feeling. This is the story of a woman whose own sister tried to destroy her marriage. My name is Hannah Brooks. I'm 33 years old, and I work as a librarian in Portland. I have always loved quiet places, soft music, rainy afternoons, and peaceful routines. Most people describe me as calm and gentle. Some even say I am too soft for this world. Maybe they are right. I never enjoyed fighting with people. I believed kindness could solve most problems, but life taught me that some people only see kindness as weakness. I grew up with my younger sister, Vanessa. She was only 2 years younger than me, but we were completely different in every possible way. Vanessa loved attention more than anything. She loved expensive clothes, loud parties, compliments, and admiration from strangers. When we were children, people constantly compared us. Teachers called Vanessa charming and exciting, while I was described as quiet and responsible. At family gatherings, Vanessa always became the center of attention. She told dramatic stories while everyone laughed around her. Meanwhile, I usually helped clean the kitchen or sat quietly beside my grandmother, listening to old family stories. It was not that my parents did not love me, they did, but Vanessa demanded attention in a way I never could. When Vanessa cried, everyone rushed to comfort her. When I felt hurt, people simply expected me to handle it quietly. Over time, I stopped competing for attention because I already knew who would win. Instead, I focused on building a peaceful life for myself. I worked hard, stayed out of trouble, and dreamed about finding someone who would truly understand me. Then I met Ethan. I still remember the first time we spoke. It happened during a rainy evening at a small bookstore cafe near my apartment. I was reading a novel while drinking tea when Ethan accidentally dropped an entire stack of books near my table. "Oh no," he said nervously while trying to pick everything up. "I'm sorry, I'm making a complete mess." I laughed softly and helped him collect the books. "It's okay, nobody was injured." He smiled immediately, and something about his smile made me feel comfortable. Ethan worked as a graphic designer for a publishing company. He was thoughtful, patient, and surprisingly funny in a quiet way that matched my personality perfectly. We talked for almost 2 hours that night about books, travel dreams, childhood memories, and life goals. For the first time in my life, happiness felt stable. After several months of dating, I introduced Ethan to my family during my father's birthday dinner. The moment Vanessa saw him, I noticed a small change in her expression. Her eyes brightened with sudden interest. "Well," she said with a playful smile, "Hannah finally found a handsome man." Everyone laughed around the table, including me, but something about her tone made me uncomfortable for a second. Still, I ignored the feeling. Vanessa flirted with everybody. That was simply part of her personality. Later that evening, while Ethan drove me home, he smiled softly. "Your sister has a very strong personality." I laughed quietly. That's one way to describe her. 2 years later, Ethan and I got married beside a lake surrounded by tall trees and white flowers. It was a small wedding with close friends and family. Soft music played in the background while sunlight reflected beautifully across the water. I remember standing beside Ethan during our vows and feeling truly safe for the first time in my life. Vanessa was my maid of honor. She wore a beautiful dark green dress that fit her perfectly. Even during my wedding reception, guests continued complimenting her appearance. "Your sister looks like a movie star," one guest whispered loudly. I smiled politely, but deep inside, an old familiar sadness returned. Somehow, Vanessa always became the center of attention, no matter where she went. After our honeymoon, Ethan and I moved into a comfortable apartment downtown. Life finally felt peaceful. We cooked dinner together, watched old movies late at night, and spent weekends exploring bookstores and coffee shops around the city. Sometimes we stayed awake talking about our future children and the kind of home we wanted to build together someday. For the first time in my life, happiness felt stable. Then Vanessa started visiting more often. At first, everything seemed normal. She stopped by once a week for dinner. Sometimes she brought wine or desserts from expensive bakeries. Other times, she simply arrived unexpectedly, saying she felt lonely and wanted company. Ethan always treated her politely because she was my sister, but slowly, little things started bothering me. Vanessa laughed too loudly at Ethan's jokes. She touched his arm while speaking to him. She complimented him constantly. Sometimes I caught her staring at him with an expression I could not fully explain. One Friday evening, she arrived wearing a tight black dress and bright red lipstick. Ethan looked surprised when he opened the door. "Wow," Vanessa laughed confidently. "Do I look overdressed?" Ethan smiled awkwardly. "You look nice." Vanessa turned toward me with a strange little smile. "Your husband is very sweet, Hannah." Something cold moved through my chest, but I pushed the feeling away. I did not want to become paranoid. Over the next few weeks, Vanessa became even more comfortable inside our home. Sometimes she visited without calling first. Sometimes she stayed until midnight talking with Ethan while I cleaned the kitchen or answered work emails. One evening, we were all watching a movie together on the couch. I noticed Vanessa slowly moving closer to Ethan during the film. Their shoulders touched lightly. Ethan shifted slightly away from her, but a few minutes later, she moved close to him again. I tried focusing on the movie, but my chest felt tight the entire night. After she left, I finally spoke to Ethan. "Do you think Vanessa comes here too often?" I asked carefully. Ethan looked confused. "She's your sister." "I know, but sometimes she acts strange around you." He sighed softly and kissed my forehead. "Hannah, you worry too much." I nodded quietly, but deep inside I was not convinced. After that conversation, small things started bothering me more. Vanessa began texting Ethan directly. At first, the messages seemed harmless, funny pictures, jokes, movie recommendations. But then I noticed strange comments. "You must get bored when Hannah falls asleep early. You deserve more excitement in your life. You and I understand each other better." Every time I saw those messages, an uncomfortable feeling grew stronger inside me. One rainy afternoon, I arrived home early because the library closed sooner than expected. As I unlocked the apartment door, I heard laughter from the kitchen, Vanessa's laughter, and Ethan's. I stepped inside quietly. Then I froze. Vanessa stood beside my husband while he cooked dinner. She held a spoon near his mouth while laughing softly. Ethan looked relaxed and comfortable beside her. The moment Vanessa saw me standing there, she smiled calmly instead of moving away. "Hannah," she said sweetly, "you're home early." My stomach dropped instantly. That night, after Vanessa finally left, I could not stop thinking about what I had seen. Her hand near his face, the comfortable atmosphere between them, the confident smile she gave me when I walked through the door. Ethan stood in the kitchen washing dishes while I sat silently at the table pretending to check my phone. Finally, I looked up at him. "Can I ask you something honestly?" "Of course." I took a slow breath. "Do you think Vanessa behaves inappropriately around you?" For a moment, he looked uncomfortable. Then he sighed tiredly. "Hannah, not this again." "I'm serious. She's just friendly." Friendly? I repeated quietly. Ethan rubbed his forehead. I think you're reading too much into it. His answer hurt more than I expected. I wanted him to say I was imagining things because he noticed nothing strange. Instead, it sounded like he simply did not care enough to notice. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, Vanessa sent me a text message. Had fun yesterday. Tell Ethan I said goodbye. I stared at the screen for a long time. Why mention my husband instead of me? Why did every message somehow become about him? Over the next 2 weeks, things became worse. Vanessa visited constantly. Sometimes she brought expensive coffee to Ethan's office because she was already nearby. Other times, she appeared late at night saying she needed relationship advice. One Saturday afternoon, I walked into the kitchen and found them laughing together while making pasta. Vanessa held a wooden spoon in her hand. "Your husband cooks better than you," she teased. Normally, I would have laughed too, but something about the scene felt wrong. They looked too comfortable together. That evening, I called my best friend, Rachel. "You think I'm crazy, don't you?" I asked quietly. "No," Rachel replied immediately. "Your instincts exist for a reason." I sat silently on the balcony while cold wind touched my face. "But what if I'm just insecure?" I whispered. "Vanessa always got more attention growing up. Maybe this is all inside my head." Rachel became quiet for a moment before answering. "Hannah, there's a difference between jealousy and warning signs." Her words stayed inside my mind long after the phone call ended. A few days later, something happened that made my fear even stronger. I arrived home early again because a meeting was canceled at work. Soft music played from the kitchen. As I walked closer, I suddenly stopped near the doorway. Vanessa and Ethan stood together drinking wine, too close together. Vanessa laughed at something he said and touched his chest lightly with her hand. My heart immediately started pounding. "Hey," I said suddenly. Both of them turned quickly. Vanessa stepped back slightly, but she smiled calmly like nothing was wrong. "Hannah," she said brightly, "you scared me." Ethan looked uncomfortable. "You're home early." The atmosphere changed immediately. The laughter disappeared. The warmth disappeared. Everyone suddenly looked nervous, except Vanessa. She slowly took another sip of wine. "You work too much," she told me. "Ethan gets lonely sometimes." The sentence felt like a slap across my face. That night, after she left, I confronted Ethan again. "This has to stop." He looked exhausted immediately. "Nothing is happening." "Then why does she act like that?" "I don't know." "And why don't you push her away?" That question made him defensive. "I'm trying to be polite," he replied sharply. "She's your sister." I stared at him in disbelief. "If another man touched me like that, would you call it polite?" Ethan opened his mouth but could not answer. For the first time since our marriage began, we slept facing opposite sides of the bed. The next morning, Vanessa invited me to lunch at a cafe near my workplace. I almost refused, but part of me wanted answers. She arrived wearing sunglasses and an expensive white coat. "You look tired," she said while sitting down. "I didn't sleep well." She smiled slightly. "Marriage can be stressful." Something about her tone felt sharp beneath the sweetness. I looked directly into her eyes. "Do you have feelings for Ethan?" For a moment, her expression froze. Then she laughed loudly. "Oh my God, Hannah! I'm serious." She leaned back slowly in her chair. "You overthink everything. Just answer me." Her eyes steadied my face carefully before she smiled again. "Ethan is attractive," she admitted casually, "but he's your husband." The answer should have comforted me, but strangely it made me feel worse because she never actually denied wanting him. Before leaving, she touched my hand gently. "You should relax," she whispered. "Men hate insecure women." I sat frozen long after she walked away. That evening, I found Ethan staring at his phone with a strange expression. "What happened?" I asked carefully. He locked the screen quickly. "Nothing." My chest tightened immediately. "Was that Vanessa?" He hesitated for 1 second too long. "Yes." Something inside me cracked. "What did she want?" "She was asking about you." I held out my hand. "Show me." Ethan looked uncomfortable, but finally gave me the phone. My stomach twisted painfully when I read the messages. "Hannah gets emotional too easily. I think she's becoming paranoid. You deserve peace in your life." My hands started shaking. "Why would she send this to you?" Ethan looked frustrated. "I didn't want drama." The word drama filled me with sudden anger. "So now I'm drama?" "That's not what I meant." But I was already crying. For years, I survived being ignored beside Vanessa. I could survive strangers choosing her first, but I could not survive feeling second place inside my own marriage. That weekend, Vanessa asked if she could stay at our apartment for several days because her roommate was traveling. I almost refused immediately, but Ethan surprised me. "She's family," he said carefully. "Maybe things will feel less uncomfortable if everyone relaxes." Part of me wanted to scream no. Instead, against my better judgment, I agreed. The first evening felt normal enough. We ordered food, watched television, and talked about childhood memories. But late that night, I woke up thirsty and walked toward the kitchen. As I passed the living room, I suddenly stopped. Vanessa and Ethan sat together in the dark, very close together. Blue television light flashed softly across their faces. Then I heard Vanessa whisper something that made my entire body freeze. "You married the wrong sister." Ethan looked shocked. "What?" Vanessa smiled sadly. "You belong with someone exciting, not someone boring like Hannah." I could barely breathe. Ethan stood up immediately. "Stop talking like that." But Vanessa moved closer instead. "You know I'm right." At that exact moment, the floor beneath my foot creaked loudly. Both of them turned toward me. The room became completely silent, and the expression on Vanessa's face told me one terrifying thing. She was no longer hiding what she wanted. For several long seconds, nobody moved. I stood frozen near the hallway while Ethan looked horrified. Vanessa, however, looked perfectly calm. "What is wrong with you?" I whispered. She crossed her arms slowly. "Nothing. You just told my husband he married the wrong sister. We were only talking." Ethan looked angry now. "No, Vanessa, you crossed the line." For the first time, I saw genuine frustration on his face when he looked at her, but Vanessa only laughed softly. "Everybody is acting so serious." I stared at Ethan. "Why were you sitting alone with her in the dark?" "I came for water," he answered quickly. "She was already here." Vanessa walked calmly toward the guest room. "You both need to relax." That night, Ethan slept on the couch while I cried silently inside our bedroom. The next morning, Vanessa acted completely normal. "Good morning," she said brightly while pouring coffee. I stared at her in disbelief. "How can you behave normally after last night?" She shrugged casually. "Because I'm not the one creating tension." The entire day at work felt terrible. I could not focus on anything. Even my coworkers noticed something was wrong. That evening, when I returned home, the apartment felt strangely quiet. Then I noticed 2 wine glasses on the balcony table. My stomach dropped instantly. I walked toward the balcony slowly. Vanessa and Ethan stood outside beneath the city lights. "You deserve better," I heard her whisper. My chest tightened painfully. Suddenly, Ethan noticed me standing there. "Hannah," he said quickly. Vanessa turned calmly toward me. "We were having an honest conversation." "About what?" She smiled faintly. "About relationships." Then she looked directly at me and said, "Sometimes people marry the safe choice instead of the exciting choice." Something inside me finally snapped. "For years," I said shakily, "I stayed quiet while you took attention from everyone around you, but you are not taking my marriage too." The smile disappeared from Vanessa's face. "You think Ethan truly wants this quiet little life?" she asked coldly. Before I could answer, Ethan finally raised his voice. "Enough." Both of us looked at him in shock. He pointed toward the hallway. "Vanessa, leave right now." For 1 second, she looked genuinely surprised. "You're choosing her?" Ethan's expression hardened immediately. "She's my wife." The silence that followed felt sharp enough to cut glass. Vanessa grabbed her purse angrily. "You'll regret this." Then she slammed the apartment door behind her. I stood shaking while Ethan looked exhausted. "I should have stopped this earlier," he admitted quietly. "Yes," I whispered, "you should have." The next few days became strangely peaceful, but the silence did not heal everything. I still felt anxious whenever Ethan checked his phone. I still remembered every uncomfortable moment between him and Vanessa. Then one evening, Ethan's phone buzzed while he showered. I glanced at the screen and froze. "Vanessa, she doesn't deserve you." Another message appeared immediately after. "You know I can make you happier." My hands became cold. At that exact moment, Ethan walked into the kitchen. Without speaking, I handed him the phone. He looked at the messages and cursed quietly under his breath. Then, directly in front of me, he blocked her number. "She's gone too far." Tears filled my eyes immediately. "Why is she doing this to me?" I whispered. Ethan gently touched my shoulder. "This isn't your fault." But deep inside, part of me still wondered if Vanessa was right. Maybe I really was boring. Maybe Ethan secretly wanted someone more exciting. That fear stayed hidden inside me like a shadow. Then 3 nights later, everything exploded. Ethan was working late while I sat alone at home when somebody knocked loudly at the apartment door. I opened it slowly. Vanessa stood there with red eyes and messy makeup. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you." "I don't want to talk." Before I could close the door, she whispered something that made my blood run cold. "You should ask your husband where he was last night." Fear crashed through my chest immediately. "What are you talking about?" Vanessa smiled sadly. "He wasn't working late." Then she looked directly into my eyes. "Ethan came to see me." For one terrible moment, I forgot how to breathe. Rain fell softly outside the apartment building while Vanessa stood in front of me with tears in her eyes. Her mascara had smudged beneath her lashes, but despite the messy appearance, her expression remained strangely calm. "You're lying," I whispered. She shook her head slowly. "Ask him yourself." My heart pounded painfully inside my chest. "Why would he visit you?" Vanessa lowered her eyes dramatically. "Because he needed someone who understood him." The sentence hit me like broken glass. I wanted to slam the door in her face, but fear kept me frozen in place. What if she was telling the truth? What if everything I believed about my marriage was collapsing? Before I could answer, the elevator doors opened behind her. Ethan stepped into the hallway carrying his laptop bag. The moment he saw Vanessa standing outside our apartment, his face changed completely. "Hannah," he said quickly, "don't listen to her." Vanessa turned toward him slowly. "So now you want to pretend nothing happened?" I stared between both of them, terrified and confused. "Tell me the truth," I whispered. Ethan walked toward me immediately. "Yes, I saw Vanessa yesterday." My stomach dropped. Vanessa crossed her arms with a small, victorious smile, but Ethan continued speaking before she could say anything else. "I met her because I wanted this to end." The smile disappeared from Vanessa's face. Ethan looked directly into my eyes. "She kept contacting me from different phone numbers after I blocked her. She begged me to meet her one last time, so I agreed. I met her at a cafe and told her clearly to stay away from us." I looked at Vanessa. "Is that true?" For the first time all evening, she stayed silent. Ethan pulled out his phone and opened several messages. "Please meet me one last time. I know you still think about me. I can make you happier than she can." My chest tightened painfully as I read the words. Then Ethan showed me his final message after the meeting. "I love my wife. Stop contacting me again." Tears immediately filled my eyes. Vanessa's expression darkened with anger. "You're acting like some perfect husband," she snapped. Ethan's voice became cold. "I never wanted you, Vanessa." The hallway became completely silent. For the first time since all this started, I saw real pain on Vanessa's face. Not fake sadness, real heartbreak. But even then, she still looked at me with bitterness. "You don't understand," she whispered. "She always wins." I stared at her in disbelief. "Wins?" I repeated softly. "This was never a competition." "Yes, it was," Vanessa suddenly shouted. Her voice echoed loudly through the hallway. "When we were children, everyone expected me to be special. Everyone expected me to shine brighter than you. But somehow you became the happy one." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "You found someone who truly loved you," she continued shakily, "and I hated that." For a moment my anger disappeared, and only sadness remained. My sister had spent her entire life chasing attention so desperately that she destroyed every good thing around her. Ethan stepped quietly beside me. "Vanessa," he said firmly, "you need help." She laughed bitterly through her tears. "You both think I'm crazy." "No," I answered softly. "I think you're lost." For several long seconds, nobody spoke. Then Vanessa slowly wiped her face and picked up her purse. "I won't bother you anymore," she whispered quietly. This time her voice sounded empty instead of angry. Without another word, she turned and walked toward the elevator. The doors slowly closed behind her, and just like that, she was gone. I stood frozen in the hallway while Ethan gently touched my hand. "Hannah," he whispered softly, "I'm sorry." I looked at him with exhausted eyes. "For what?" "For not stopping this sooner." We walked back into the apartment together. The silence between us felt different now, still painful, but finally honest. That night we sat together on the balcony while city lights flickered below us. "I almost believed her," I admitted quietly. Ethan looked at me seriously. "She knows how to create doubt." I nodded slowly. For years, Vanessa survived by controlling people with charm, beauty, and attention, but this time her game finally collapsed. A few weeks later, my parents called me. Vanessa had moved to another state to stay temporarily with our aunt. According to my mother, she had finally started speaking with a therapist. Part of me felt relieved. Another part of me still felt heartbroken, because no matter what happened, she was still my sister. Months passed slowly after that. Life became peaceful again, but trust takes time to heal. Ethan and I started communicating more honestly after everything happened. We stopped ignoring uncomfortable feelings. We stopped pretending problems would disappear on their own. One evening, while we cooked dinner together, Ethan suddenly smiled at me. "What?" I asked softly. "You know what I realized?" I laughed quietly. "What?" "You were never weak." His words stayed warm inside my chest. For most of my life, I believed being quiet meant being invisible. I believed strong people were loud, confident, and impossible to ignore. But now I understood something important. Quiet people notice everything. Quiet people survive things others cannot imagine. And sometimes the strongest person in the room is the one who speaks the least. A year later, Ethan and I visited the same lake where we got married. The water moved gently beneath the evening sunset while cold wind touched my face. I leaned quietly against his shoulder. "Do you regret marrying me?" I asked suddenly. Ethan looked shocked. "Never." I smiled faintly. Then he kissed my forehead gently and whispered, "You are my peace, Hannah." And for the first time in a very long time, I believed it completely. The painful truth about family is this: sometimes the people closest to us can hurt us the most, but another truth matters too. Love without trust cannot survive, and self-respect matters more than staying silent. That was the lesson my sister taught me in the hardest possible way. Not every battle should be fought with anger. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is finally say, "Enough." Now it is time to learn some useful English vocabulary from today's story. Betray means to hurt someone who trusts you. Vanessa betrayed Hannah by trying to steal her husband. Jealous means feeling unhappy because somebody has something you want. Vanessa became jealous of Hannah's happy marriage. Trust means believing somebody is honest and loyal. Trust is important in every relationship. Boundary means a limit people should respect. Vanessa crossed emotional boundaries inside Hannah's marriage. Confused means unable to understand clearly. Hannah felt confused during the situation. Argument means an angry discussion between people. Hannah and Ethan had arguments because of Vanessa. Loyal means faithful and supportive. Ethan remained loyal to his wife. Fear means a strong feeling of worry or danger. Hannah felt fear when Vanessa manipulated the situation. Honest means truthful and real. Ethan finally became completely honest with Hannah. Peace means a calm feeling without stress or conflict. Hannah wanted peace in her life and marriage. Respect means treating people carefully and kindly. Respect is necessary in healthy relationships. Forgive means to stop feeling angry after somebody hurts you. Forgiveness can take a long time. Now it is time for shadowing practice. Listen carefully and repeat after me. I trusted my family. She crossed the line. My heart was broken. I needed the truth. He chose honesty. I was tired of staying silent. She wanted my life. I finally stood up for myself. Trust takes time to heal. I was stronger than I believed. Love needs honesty. I deserved respect. Pain can teach important lessons. I learned my true value. Peace is more important than attention. Practice these sentences slowly first, then repeat them again with confidence and emotion. Thank you so much for listening to today's TaleTalk English. This story was emotional, painful, and meaningful, but I hope it also helped you improve your English step by step. Now tell me your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if you were Hannah? Do you think Ethan handled the situation correctly? And do you think Vanessa truly changed in the end? Thank you again for spending your time here with me. Take care of yourself, keep practicing English every day, and see you next time in another TaleTalk English.